now blessed Godhammer Bridge, I thought of Ashfall. I thought of the War of Black Trees, wondered if I needed to be burned to find myself again. That is Margaret at her heart. At least that is my hope. These are the doubts that befall me.
What happened when you returned to Ashfall?
The road to Ashfall is long, gives one time to think. And if you think long enough, you do not go home. I left without telling anyone, with only the robes I wore at Halgot, my staff, and my name, which is long buried. Of my fellow 11 craftsmen, disciples, I know not what happened to them, if they suffered the same doubt as I did. But it was underserved. It was wrong. We had done all that. Oh, had asked. Grabbed victory from defeat and
You feel as if your God has betrayed you.
there is something about being used and cast aside. Perhaps Widewen himself felt it. There at the end, when the hammer struck. To be the proof that your God is hollow as the vessel it inhabits. I tried to find purpose, and avoided all contact with other Magranic priests, did not seek the walls of Ashfall, and sought to make amends to my God through actions. I joined with the Purges for a time, and not long after came the first signs of the Hollowborn. So many crimes, trespasses, violations. The Salvation. Animancers were another sickness born of the Saints' War. A relapse of innovation, of desperation to heal what we had caused. All seemed worse than before the bridge, not better. And as years passed, the world became even worse still for the victory.
Maybe the purges weren't what Margaret wanted either. Sweat collects in the sooty creases of his forehead and runs down his ruddy cheeks. It drips from the tip of his nose. His mouth moves, but his utterances make no sound. He is for once at a loss. Feeling your gaze, he quickly composes himself, wiping his forehead with the back of a dirty hand.
Huh? Worship the whims of some fickle bitch, and you'll never be more than dirt beneath her feet. Worship what she worships, on the other hand. Take her fire for your own, and her esteem comes on its own. Of course, by that time you no longer need it. Trial and transformation, sure as Durance taught.
Durance glares at you, and staring into his eyes gives you the feeling of peering over the edge of a great cliff.
You think to put the coals to my feet, but what's burned once will never burn again. These talks are your trial, Watcher. You cannot deflect the truth to one who has already been purified by it.
Tell me what happened on the bridge. We chose the bridge because we could control it. It was a place where we could choke Ethos in his own footsteps, where we knew his feet would fall, a narrow neck of stone. But it was more than that. It was a spire of direwood, symbolic of its backbone. Such symbols are important to the construction of a weapon, any weapon. I suspect Ethos knew that as well, and so did his vessel. In its arrogance, he intended to walk upon the bridge as if walking on the backs of the direwood, and we intended to burn him with the light of our faith and his 12 on the bridge, 12 in the shadow, and gave ourselves to it. Gave yourselves to
We
it.
put much of ourselves into the Godhammer. Such a device is not simply a machine. There are elements of the spirit in it, even Widewind's spirit.
Widewin, why?
We all studied Widewind. He was our enemy, and he had provided the flesh the god wore as a cloak. That flesh made him vulnerable. I knew what fields his hands had tilled, his family, what he had harvested, where he had been born. We sought to know him, what had led him to fight us.
Why was that important?
You don't kill the god. You kill the man it inhabits. And you leave that man a ruin. Burn him to ash. The weapon was meant to not only burn his flesh, but it would burn his soul. And it did. At the cost of our own. And at the cost of our goddess's favor. That whore be damned.
Is that why your image was blurred in the dream? Perhaps your eyes were blinded by the Godhammer's light watcher. I may feel like a man at times, but even that is twice that of most others.
If you fear for my spirit, your fears are baseless. The Godhammer, seeing its light, only fueled my anger and made me stronger, made me re-examine the teachings of Margaret, put them in a new light.
It looked as if there was only part of you, as if your spirit had been sheared in half.
I do not need you to cast any more questions on me, Watcher. Nor did I ask you to look upon me without my leave. Get gone, and leave me be.
Finally, jeez, that was a long dialogue. Right in the middle of a quest.
Of course.
Blood bonds. We're going to Cantha's residence. Save it before we go in.
You return. What
I
have you
need the
come
words
seeking this
that
time?
operate the Angwithian machine in the tower.
That fool Aldhelm. He sent you, didn't he? I can hardly believe he's had the cleverness to survive. That simpleton thinks he can understand how to use something without understanding what it is, or why it is.
Feel a hot core of pride smoldering at the center of her soul.
He dabbles with ancient and powerful devices, with all the finesse of a blacksmith. He sends you here to petition me for aid after years of disparaging my research. I'll bet he didn't even tell you the tower's name, did he? That's his problem. Always looking for solutions without caring for meaning.
Tell me the tower's name.
Ter Nuneth. It's called Ter Nuneth. They built the machine atop it to contain souls, hold them in place. But the others I've seen, machines scattered all over the Deerwood, are relays, built to move souls.
Seem to know a lot about Tyr
I read the runes like a journal. I understand their meaning. People like Aldhelm try to read them like instructions, and in so doing, they miss their true meaning completely.
Why would the Angwithians have wanted to tether souls like this?
Perhaps they didn't. Perhaps that's why they built no other machines like this one. We now see the Engwithans as masters of soul manipulation. But they couldn't have attained their expertise without copious trial and error. Perhaps this was one such experiment.
Where would they move souls?
Another mystery. Hypothetically, anywhere they wished. The real question, as always, is why? To intermix them the way a player shuffles his deck, the way a farmer rotates his fields? To collect them, like butterflies under glass? To melt them down for raw essence? Unfortunately, I don't know.
How do you operate the machine on top tier now, Nith?
Back to these tinkers' concerns. And what would you do with these tethered souls if I told you?
Wrong choice. She's not gonna tell me.
A sudden end, but for what purpose?
I could help you, but I won't. Here, I have specimens aplenty and time enough to observe them all. It's every scientist's dream. My answer is no. What? But what good is observing all this if you're going to hoard it for yourself? Tell me. An entire language at your fingertips, and she hides it away. Extinguish and Katha's pride. I won't abandon this opportunity. These souls remain here with me, and I'll accomplish more than any animancer in history of the field. And who will know about it? I've learned years of studying the Engwithan language. No one understands it better than me. That counts for something. You force your essence around the burning lump inside her, but it scorches you. Your flesh is whole and unmarked when you draw back, but it nevertheless stings at the memory of the heat. Knowledge is meaningless unless it's shared. Your words finally quench her pride, and all that remains is a blackened diamond, hard rock. You cast it away, or it melts into the darkness.
So be it. My studies and efforts shall grow through yours. These are the words you need.
Her cold, dry fingertips rest on your temples, and you feel her reaching into your mind, forming images from the darkness. Runes flash through your head, but they are no longer just pictures. They have meaning, and you understand them. They're commands. Something triggers in your mind, a distant memory unearthed from a past life long since buried. You can see a vast array of runes, far more than Acantha has shown you, and you know their sound and their meaning, and how they fit together. The language of Engwith, once more at your command.
Something has awakened in your mind. You understand far more than I ever did. Take this knowledge then, and do what you will with Ter Nuneth. Now that you understand its purpose, it will serve you in whatever way you wish.
Good. Speaker of dead tongues now. And so he surpasses 100 frustrated scholars in the matter of a few moments. I don't suppose you could look at a few books for me? You said the other towers around the Direwood were constructed to move souls. Why would the Engwithians have wanted to do that? Another mystery, hypothetically anywhere they wish. The real question, as always, is why. To intermix them the way a player shuffles his deck, the way a farmer rotates his fields, to collect them like butterflies under glass, to melt them down for raw essence. Fortunately, I don't know. What do you do with the tower now that I know these words?
Turn it off, I expect. That will be easy now that you can read the runes. The vessels would still roam, but striking them down would return their essence to the cycle. But be careful. That machine controls hundreds of souls, and that volume of essence could easily overload it. Improperly channeling the essence would destroy the machine along with the souls. It would be a terrible loss for posterity.
Remind me how you know so much about the tower. I read the runes like a journal. I understand their meaning. People like Aldehelm try to read them like instruction manuals, and in doing so, they miss their true meaning completely. I still don't understand why the Engwithans would want to build a machine that tethers souls. Perhaps they didn't. Perhaps that's why they built no other machines like this one. We now see the Engwithans as masters of soul manipulation, but they couldn't have attained their expertise without copious trial and error. Perhaps this was one such experiment. Certainly. Explain how the control words work. Harnessing the power of the Tir Nauneth is about understanding what it was designed to do. You know the words and their meanings. You can speak them, and the tower shall obey. That's all, thanks. Mhm. 9 more hours for that library. Aldehelm looks much worse than before. His rotten flesh hangs loosely, and sores have been eating away patches of skin at his joints. He looks at you with a strange glimmer in his eyes. I haven't been gone that long. Jeez.
Flesh.
He takes a tentative, scuttling step towards you. He doubles over, coughing up strings of black bile. He seems to have forgotten about you for a moment. jagged edge of pillar rises in front of you, encased in stonework and run through with copper veins. The panel is covered with runes, which you can now understand. You recognize words for end and for hold. The dial is currently fixed on hold. You also recognize by an inscription that the manner in which you turn the dial is a means of throttling device. Do I want to overload it? Choose end. Let's see what happens. Overload. Muttering a command. You give the dial a violent twist. The moving spires spin faster and faster, wobbling from their axes. The light filling the machine quickly becomes too bright to behold. You look away and cover your ears, but the thunderous crash that follows shakes the floor beneath you. When you look back, the machine is in ruins, never to be used again. Okay. Now, let's see what happens when you end it. Choose end. As the command words leave your lips, the dial sinks into Adra under your hand. Something like a thunderous clap sounds overhead. The glow fades in the machine as it falls dormant. It just shuts down.
Still and silent. It's finally over.
I'm gonna shut it down rather than blow it up, I guess. Let's get out of here. Leave. Oh. Proceed to bottom. Messenger. Beg your pardon, I have a message for you. You're summoned to Hadrat House, where Lady Webb wishes to meet with you as soon as possible. And here I thought the locals were exaggerating about Dunride Row. Seems like your names come up in some important meetings. I hope nobody was shouting it at the time. How did you know where to find me? Well, it's Lady Webb. She knows everything. Tell me about Lady Webb. Do you not know Lady Webb? She's well. No one's seen her exactly in a long time. She's the mistress of Dunride Row. Has been for as long as anyone can remember. He pauses, eyes pass her by with suspicion. Quietly he continues. She's supposed to be old, older than anybody. And she's never leaves her room. Some say she's wasted away and she's just a pile of bones kept animated by dark magics. She's still at it, best anyone can tell, learning things, keeping us safe, pulling the strings behind the throne too. It said, has a ring of ciphers doing her bidding, telling her everything that goes on. You do wrong in this country before you go asking the gods for forgiveness. Best you ask Lady Webb first. What's Dunrid Row? A whole mess of ciphers run out of Hadrat House. They make it their business to keep the peace but they don't like you to see them do it. Problems in the city have a way of going away on their own, and when that happens, you can make a pretty good guess as to why. Where can I find Hadrit House? In Brackenbury, my lord. The southwest corner. You'll find that lady upstairs. Very well. So, it looks like we're finished this area. There, that's the nice man who helped me. And thank the Iron Arm for it. We'll get you sorted out at the keep. The tower, it's off. Does this mean the curse of Heritage Hill is lifted? Fiance Bay owes me. I better get a manor in Blackberry for this. Well, that's not me for me to decide. I'm sure the city will see you're well rewarded. Oh, we can go to Anglog's compass from here. Let's go to First Fires.
Here, kitty. Come on, I want to pet you.
Let's go to the keep. And probably the war room. Why are you guys split up? The same district.
We just don't have the manpower.